time for us to put together our knowledge of slope and y-intercept and be able to graph this weird looking equation and other equations like it. The first thing that we need to do is we need to find our y-intercept, which, if you recall, is abbreviated with the letter B. And the y-intercept, as always, look at the x and go behind it. That's our number. So it's a positive 3. Look at that sign in front of it. So it's a positive 3. And I'm going to write y-intercept just off to the side so we won't forget that. Now, I'm actually on a website called geogebra.org, and it's kind of nice. You can go to, basically, it's called the GeoGebra Classic. Okay, that's what I'm using to graph this. And then there's different settings on this, but you've got these points of interest up here at the top. If you click where it's a point and an A, you'll get different options underneath, and just choose point, and then you can actually click on the point where you want it. Now, why did I put it right there at 3? Well, this is called the Y-intercept. That means our line is going to touch the Y-axis, and our Y-axis runs up and down. You'll remember this from probably 6th grade. This is our y-axis, and if it's positive 3, we put a point right there at 3. If it was minus 3, we'd come down here and we'd put a point at negative 3. If it was plus 2, we'd put a point right here at 2. You get the idea. So whatever your y-intercept is, that's where we put the point on the y-axis, and it's kind of easy. Now, the next thing that we need to look at is called our slope, and you'll remember that we go back to the equation, and where you see the x, we look at the number in front of it, and that's a positive 2. Now, I'm also going to write out this word slope right here. I need to teach you one thing about this slope. Actually, probably a couple of things. Slope is always made up of 2 numbers, and we talk about it as rise over run. Now, if you only see one number in the equation, the 2, then what you need to do is make it into a fraction. How do I make that integer into a fraction? You put a 1 under it. Now, the rise can tell you that the number can go up or down, and the run can tell you that it goes right or left. And the sign of the number tells you whether it goes up or down. If it's positive, it goes up. So this means that it would go up 2, and if it was a negative 2, we would go down 2. Okay, so the rise number, we look at the sign that tells us whether it goes up or down. The run number, it's the same thing. If it's a positive number on the bottom, we go to the right. So since it's positive 1, we'd go to the right. And if it's negative, we would go to the left. Now, how does this all fit in with this y-intercept? We look at this equation, we go, what's our y-intercept? 3. So we put a dot right there on 3, always on the y-axis, not on the x-axis. This is not the x-intercept, this is the y-intercept. So it goes on the y-axis. Now, that's our starting point. Now we use the slope. Our slope was 2. Make it into a fraction, and so since it's a positive 2, we'll move from this y-intercept up 2 spots. So see, I'm going up 2, I'm sitting there at 5. And then our run says, okay, it's a positive 1, we'll go to the right 1. And so now we can put our other dot right there. If you've got 2 dots, guess what? You can connect it and form a line. And we have formed a line that represents this equation. Okay, now you're probably overwhelmed, so let's take a look at a couple more lines. It gets easier each time, I promise you. Okay, y equals 1/3 x minus 2. Well, our y-intercept is negative 2. So we're going to come over here and we will make our mark at negative 2 on the y-axis. So there we go. Now, what is our slope? Our slope is 1/3. It's that weird fraction in front of the x. So that means that I have to move up 1 spot because that's our rise, right? That means we go up or down. Since it's positive, we go up. And our run is a positive 3, so that means I go to the right 3 spaces. That's our bottom number, rise over run. But if it was a negative 3, I would go to the left 3 spaces. So where do we go from? Our starting point, which was the y-intercept. So we go up 1 and to the right 3. So let me just make a mark right there. Well, helps if I actually choose the right option, choose the point. There we go. So we went up 1 and to the right 3 spots. And then if you had paper, it's a lot easier. If you have to do this, you click on the line and you say, hey, I want a line, and you click on your first point A, and then you click on your second point B to just make the line go through it. So that's what it would look like on your paper. Okay, let's go do a different one. All right, so our y-intercept in this case is -2, and our slope, it's a little bit of a tricky one. There's no number in front of the x, so we'd put a 1 right here, right? And since that negative sign's there, we would call the slope -1. Let's go ahead and set the slope up. How can I make that into a fraction to make my rise over 1? Well, it'd be -1 over 1. Um, let's go ahead and let's graph the first point that we need, and that is our y-intercept. Our y-intercept is -2, so I'll put a dot right there at -2 on the y-axis. Definitely not on the x-axis, right guys? This is the y-intercept, so I've got to have it on this y-axis. Now the slope is -1. That means I would go down 1, since it was a negative, right? And the bottom means I go left or right, and since the bottom is to the is positive, I would go to the right. And so let me come back here and make sure I've got this set up the way I need to. I will go down 1 and to the right 1. Here we go. Down 1 and to the right 1. Yeah, that's fine. Now, click on the line element, click on A and B, and we've graphed the line. Pretty simple, right? All right, so here we go. What's our y-intercept? It's 6. So we're going to go make a point right at +6, because we always look at that sign in front, on the y-axis. So there we go. Now we've got to take a look at our slope. Well, I always like it when we get a slope that's already a fraction, because it's so much easier. If it's a +3 on top, we go up 3. If it's +8, we go to the right 3. So again, remember, if this is a -3 on top, we would go down. If it was a -8 on the bottom, we would go left. Now, this is what's going to be nice about the digital part here. We can actually click, if you move your mouse and you get it on the graph and you hold down on the left button of your device and just hold down on it, you can actually move this graph wherever you need to. Okay. Now, we need to go up 3 and over 8. So up 3 and over 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's where our point is going to be. And let me come back over here and get the actual point that we need. Yeah, it's Black Friday. There we go. Close that. And there's our second point right there. Click on the line button, and then just choose your 2 points that you've already plotted. If you already had paper and pencil, just lay your ruler or protractor down and draw a straight line through the 2 points as best you can. I want to show you one last option, which you may see. Practice is what you need, though. There we go. Y-intercept is -5, so let's just go and make our first point on -5 on the y-axis. So here's our y-axis. There's -5. Okay. Now our slope is -2. What do we do to our slope if it is not a fraction? Well, we make it into a fraction. So that means I would go down 2 and to the right 1. So let's see here. Let me go ahead and get this ready for us. There we go. Down 2, that would put us down at -7, and to the right 1. There we go. And now you can draw your line. Try not to make it harder than what it is. I mean, graphing from slope-intercept form, you just need your y-intercept and your slope. If you can find them from the equation and you can move using the slope from that starting point of the y-intercept, it's pretty simple. Until then, it's kind of weird and awkward, but once you get used to it with practice, it's really not bad. Good luck.